The Crimson Sabres were a renegade chapter of the Adeptus Astartes which would eventually succumb to chaotic corruption. While the exact founding of the Crimson Sabres is unknown, it has been suggested that the chapter could have been created during the course of the 13th founding. The chapter would come to be regarded as renegades shortly after the events of the Amalgamation Schism, wherein their over-eagerness to prove themselves to the Blood Angels and Dark Angels, the Crimson Sabres would fail to defer to these senior chapters, choosing instead to follow their own protocols as they attempted to rescue a number of trapped colonists within a space hulk dubbed the Amalgamation. The chapter would even come perilously close to blows with the Dark Angels after witnessing one of their chaplains brutally interrogating one of the colonists. This breach of both protocol and unspoken tradition by the Crimson Sabres would not only lead towards the Angels viewing them as impudent upstarts, but also bring great shame and dishonor upon the chapter, even leading to them receiving words of rebuke and censure directly from Holy Terror. This censure would then lead to many of the chapter's warriors to begin experiencing self-doubt and concern. In order to calm the fears of his battle brothers, the then chapter master, Nigellus, would have the Crimson Sabres sever all ties with their fellow Astartes before declaring for the chapter to be reborn. This act of self-estrangement would even extend to the chapter sealing away all records pertaining to their predecessors and primogenitor Primarch. The chapter would then embark on a number of crusades against the enemies of man, earning the chapter much praise as well as numerous accolades. However, during 186 M39, as the Crimson Sabres were in the middle of one such crusade, the chapter's home system of Krakatoa would become subjected to a demonic incursion. Unable to aid in Krakatoa's defense, the chapter would discover upon their return that 8 of the system's worlds had been subjected to exterminatus, and that their homeworld of Rogon had been utterly devastated. The devastation inflicted upon Rogon would even cause all of the chapter's records to become forever lost. The Crimson Sabres would, over time, become increasingly embittered towards the Imperium, due to not only the destruction wrought throughout the Krakatoa system by the Inquisition, but also the lack of aid provided by other nearby Space Marine chapters. Despite the fact that numerous Imperial forces were within 100 light-years of the Krakatoa system, and thus able to provide aid, it is implied that none of these forces received any form of censure from Terra. Despite their growing feelings of hostility towards the Imperium, the chapter continued to fight in the name of the Emperor. In 928 M41, the chapter would pledge their support to Inquisitor Frederick Koshin of the Ordo Hereticus, after the Inquisitor requested aid in purging the world of Umidia of the Chaos worshippers known as the Balathu cult. The Crimson Sabres would pledge their entire chapter to the Inquisitor for this endeavor, though this act would result in the Hawk Lords, Angels in Carmine, and Dark Angels withdrawing their offers of support out of spite. The Crimson Sabres would then proceed to butcher the primitive natives of the world, believing that they intended to open up a warp rift and summon a legion of demonic entities. It would be revealed that the chapter had been deceived, for instead of purging Chaos cultists, the chapter had, in actuality, massacred innocent civilians that were in the midst of celebrating the Emperor and a number of Imperial saints during a great festival. The Crimson Sabres would then become cursed for their actions, destined to become forever haunted by the voices of those that they had unjustifiably slain. In an attempt to break this curse, the Crimson Sabres would launch an assault upon the nearby world of Demetra, believing that it too had also become contaminated by chaotic corruption. This action would result in the chapter being declared as excommunicate traitoris. In desperation, the chapter would journey into the Eye of Terror, seeking to martyr themselves against the forces of chaos to redeem themselves for their actions, and hopefully put an end to the curse of the voices. despite their numerous battles against traitor Legion Astartes and demonic entities, the chapter would eventually fall to damnation. Chapter Master Sevastus Cranon would abandon the chapter's oath of martyrdom, no longer wishing to die for what he deemed to be a pointless cause. The chapter would then become reborn as a Chaos Space Marine warband, now known as the Crimson Slaughter, though a few of their number, led by Captain Zarton of the 4th Company, would remain loyal to the Imperium and abandon their battle brothers. Since all records regarding the chapter's origins have been lost, then which of the first founding legions could potentially have been the primogenitors of the Crimson Sabres? The 7th edition Crimson Slaughter Codex strongly implies that the Crimson Sabres, prior to their records becoming lost, maintained some sort of relationship with their parent chapter. Despite the identity of their parent chapter being unknown, the fact that some form of affiliation existed between these two chapters would strongly indicate that the Crimson Sabres were descended from one of the 9 Loyalist legions. The Battle Brothers of the chapter were noted to have put forth their own theories regarding the source of their gene seed, as detailed with the following passage from the story Crimson Dawn.
Each brother among the chapter held their own theory, often claiming they were descended from such noble and proud chapters as the Ultramarines, Blood Angels, or Imperial Fists. There had been a few members of the chapter down the centuries, usually brothers of the Librarius or Reclusium, who held a different belief regarding their origins, that the Crimson Sabres were founded from a chapter whose own roots lay on a feudal world. This, they argued, was the source of the Crimson Sabres' prowess and fascination with the blade, but at the cost of mastery of other close combat weapons.
While a number of Crimson Sabres have suggested a potential genetic link to the Blood Angels, this particular possibility appears to be unlikely for a number of reasons. The most glaring of which would be due to the fact that no battle brother of the Crimson Sabres has been documented as succumbing to either of the gene seed flaws of the Blood Angels, the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. Those who fall to the Black Rage will devolve into a state of violent madness, where they believe that they are their Primarch Sanguinius during the final hours of the Horus Heresy, while the Red Thirst instills within those who suffer from its effects an unnatural hunger for blood. In addition, during the Amalgamation Schism, there was no indication of, for lack of a better term, a familial link between the Blood Angels and the Crimson Sabres, especially with the Crimson Slaughter Codex insinuating that the Sabres maintained a relationship with their parent chapter prior to this particular event. This latter detail would also rule out the Dark Angels as being potential primogenitors of the chapter as well, especially given the reaction of the Crimson Sabres to a Dark Angel's chaplain interrogating a prisoner. The chaplains of the Unforgiven, a group comprised of the Dark Angels and their successor chapters, are figures of great importance in the Unforgiven's hunt for the Fallen, those members of the original Dark Angels Legion who turned traitor during the Horus Heresy. When the Space Hulk known as Amalgamation materialized from the warp, the Dark Angels would initially demand to explore the Hulk alone, though they would be denied this request by both the Crimson Sabres and the Blood Angels, who would arrive shortly thereafter, with the Blood Angels assuming overall command due to having the most senior officer present. This would suggest that the Dark Angels believed that either a member of the Fallen or individuals with knowledge pertaining to one's location were on board this vessel. If this were the case, then the fact that the Crimson Sabres appeared to be horrified by the actions of an interrogator chaplain would also strongly suggest that the Sabres do not share any sort of connection to the Dark Angels. This lack of notable gene seed flaws displayed by the Crimson Sabres would also rule out a number of other first founding chapters as being potential primogenitors. The possibility of the Raven Guard can be discarded due to the fact that this particular chapter's gene seed lacks the ability to produce the Betcher's gland and mucranoid organs. In addition, the genetic stock of the Raven Guard also displays deficiencies within the melanchromic organ, resulting in all members of the chapter developing dark hair, black eyes, and pale skin. The novella Crimson Dawn details that the battle brothers within the Crimson Sabres were noted to have a variety of hair and eye colors, such as blonde hair and blue eyes. The Space Wolves and Salamanders would also appear to have no genetic ties to the Crimson Sabres, due to the various flaws and instabilities found within their respective gene seeds, as well as a general lack of successors being founded from the genetic stock of these particular chapters. The Space Wolves are noted for their gene seed granting aspirants enhanced senses, continuously growing canine teeth, yellow eyes, and a major flaw known as the Curse of the Wolfen, which transforms those who succumb to it into monstrous beasts. The Salamanders, by contrast, are known for developing onyx-coloured skin and blood-red eyes. While some maintain that this is purely a result of the radiation from their homeworld of Nocturne, others point to this as a sign of greater genetic degradation. In addition, prior to the introduction of Primaris Marines, the Space Wolves would sire only one successor chapter, the Wolf Brothers. However, this chapter would eventually become extinct due to the fact that only those native to the world of Fenris were compatible with the unique components found within Space Wolf's gene seed, rendering the Wolf Brothers incapable of replenishing their losses. The Salamanders, however, at least from an official standpoint, have sired no successor chapters at all, and their gene seed has been stated to be not only the most unstable, but also highly susceptible to mutation. While there would also appear to be no genetic links between the Sabres and the Imperial Fists, due to the Sabres not being documented as lacking the Betcher's gland and Susan membrane like other Imperial Fist successor chapters, this possibility cannot be ruled out entirely. This is due primarily to the cultural heritage of the Imperial Fists, as many Dornian chapters value the art of swordsmanship. This is most notably demonstrated with the event known as the Feast of Blades, where Imperial Fist successor chapters gather to compete against one another in a contest of swordsmanship and martial prowess. As such, given the Crimson Sabres' own prowess and fascination with blades, this could potentially be a lingering remnant of a possible Dornian heritage. However, given the fact that the chapter has not been documented as having the zygote deficiencies prevalent within other Imperial Fist successors, we will assume that the gene seed of the Crimson Sabres is able to produce each of the unique implants utilized in the creation of an Astartes. This would then suggest that the most likely primogenitors of the Crimson Sabres could either be the Ultramarines, Iron Hands, or White Scars. Of these three particular chapters, the most statistically likely possibility would be that the Crimson Sabres are descended from the Ultramarines. This is due to the fact that not only is the gene seed of the Ultramarines regarded to be one of the purer and thus more desirable sources of genetic material to utilize, but also because the Ultramarines Legion would sire the greatest number of successor chapters, rendering the likelihood of the Crimson Sabres being sons of the Primarch Rebute Gilliman being fairly high. But there is an equally high chance that the Crimson Sabres could in fact be descended from the White Scars. Much like the Crimson Sabres, the warriors of the White Scars are highly proficient in the arts of the blade, with the chapter's fourth company in particular, known as the Talwar Brotherhood, being utterly dedicated and highly trained swordsmen. The warriors of the company specialize in using curved chainswords modeled after the Talwar blades wielded by native Jagorian tribesmen, as well as utilizing Kinyal daggers in combat. The very name of the Crimson Sabres could, in itself, be a clue to their origins, as the curved Talwar-inspired blades of the White Scars could arguably be classified as a type of saber in their own right. After all, not only is a saber a type of sword that is predominantly wielded by cavalry, but the Battle Brothers of the White Scars are themselves drawn from the native tribes of Chigoris, who are also experts in fighting upon horseback. While this admittedly could be more of a coincidental link, it is still not a complete impossibility for this fallen chapter to be the sons of Jagatai Khan. Regardless as to which of the first founding legions the Crimson Sabres are descended from, the fact that the bulk of this once proud and noble chapter have succumbed to the temptations of chaos means that they are to suffer the fate of all who turn from the Emperor's light: extinction. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.